4 years have passed since the events of Babidi, and Majin Buu was never released. During those 4 years, the Saiyans, other than Pishi and kind of Trunks, grew massively. For starters, all the pure Red Saiyans have unlocked Super Saiyan 3, which is made easier due to them having their tails still. Gohan wants to follow down his dad's path, however, Trunks is starting to slowly lose to his human nature, and have had his potential unlocked by the Elder Kai, just like Pishi. This puts him slightly above the adults, actually, but he loses due to skill. CPUs have all gotten weaker, however. As per normal, Neptune and Vert are lazy, while Blanc has been studying some strange crystals filled with energy along with Blanc. However, she's been noticeably getting sick lately. Quite strange, as they've never been sick before. Nora used to work pretty hard, however, while being very successful as a businesswoman running a whole subdivision of Capsule Corp on her own, she's starting to slacken her training too. After all the rest of the CPU do, she deserves a break. Iris Heart had also finally deformed back to Plutia, and everyone prefers that, so they just let her be lazy. They're not going to try to make her transform. Pishi had been training enough to satisfy her Saiyan half. However, if she's gotten any stronger, it's hardly noticeable. Bulma's birthday party comes up, and everyone's actually there this time. Goku's a bit smarter and more mature in this series, so he does show up on time. But while everyone's having a good time, Beerus shows up. Vegeta and Nappa are nearly shitting their pants. Raditz has heard stories, but he doesn't really know how to feel. And everyone else is confused on why Vegeta is terrified of a purple cat. Beerus introduces himself and says he's looking for a Super Saiyan God. Goku explains that they don't know what that is, but they can cycle through their forms. Beerus agrees to a little bit of exercise. Goku goes Super Saiyan, but Beerus isn't impressed. And then Goku goes Super Saiyan 2, and while being noticeably more powerful, Beerus is still less than happy. Finally, Goku goes Super Saiyan 3, and Beerus is finally impressed. Goku is about as strong as he can be, as strong as he was in canon, so yeah, as strong as he can be. And then he gets clapped. Since Beerus isn't pissed off, though, Goku gets to live, and well, Beerus is more interested in the CPU and, to an extension, Trunks. So Goku is just kind of like a side project for him right now. The CPUs have a godly aura to them. Not like him, but maybe a lesser god. And Pishi is apparently Goku's son, even though she looks nothing like either of her parents. Trunks has a slight bit of godliness to him, likely being his ultimate form. And Pishi decides, or agrees, to show off her ultimate form to Beerus. But while she is notably stronger than Goku, not enough to impress Beerus. Beerus came for a Super Saiyan God, but got nothing he wanted. So he's gonna blow up the planet. But before he can, Neptune suggests to use the Deus Ex Machina, aka the Dragon Balls. The story of 5 pure-hearted Saiyans was told, and so naturally they had more than enough to make a Super Saiyan God. And the choice was obvious. Pick Pishi. She's the strongest. So that's what Beerus thought. But Pishi didn't think this was such a good idea. In case you forgot, Pishi was the first to unlock HDD. And she did this before anyone knew what Super Saiyans were, aside from Vegeta, but he'd only heard stories. Since HDD is equal to Super Saiyan 2, and she had no reason to learn either Super Saiyan levels, she just never learned it. She had also gotten the ultimate form before her father learned Super Saiyan 3. So, even if she didn't get her ultimate form, or, but there's basically no reason for her to get Super Saiyan. Because Super Saiyan 3 is weaker than the ultimate form. HED is equal to Super Saiyan 2. Those forms are literally just more strenuous power-ups than the ones she already has. So, there was no reason to do so. Plus, HDD made her an adult when she was a kid. So, it was a more combat-capable form anyways. There's just no reason to learn. They decided to try it anyways. And so Goku, Vegeta, Raditz, and Nappa, as well as Gohan, put their energy into Pishi. At first, everything is fine. glowing a bright red color and powering up, but then she feels something weird trigger inside it. A familiar weird, but weird nonetheless. She struggles to hold in her dramatically increasing power, before she explodes with a bright pillar of light filling the air, with a red glow inside. Pishi, instead of turning to a Super Saiyan God, turned HDD, and then Super Saiyan God on top of that. This combines the forms nearly seamlessly, creating what is essentially her version of Super Saiyan Blue. Beyond that, actually, since HDD is equal to Super Saiyan 2 in power. Not to mention, in this form, since her body itself transformed, she has no control issue. Well, she has one. The only issue is that this form is stacked. It's like an ascension to HDD. And HDD messes with her personality. So, before the fight officially starts, Pishi runs up yelling a big bang and sent Beerus into the atmosphere with an uppercut while he was talking. So, yeah, you can imagine that pissed Beerus off. Regardless, though, Beerus is plenty happy. He's over 100 times stronger than Goku at bare minimum. Thus, Beerus he had a way better fight than in canon. And the universe wasn't threatening to be destroyed. So, we're all good. Unfortunately, though, as I've mentioned a couple times before, we're in the manga version of this timeline. I think I mentioned it a couple times already. So, Pishi does not absorb the Super Saiyan God power into her base. That's something she'd have to train. Out in the depths of space, however, there's a large block of ice. It slowly cracks open before a figure appears from it. It's cooling. His men approach him, wondering if he recovered well. A long time ago, Cooler was hit by a species' secret technique, and since his guard was down, he suffered fatal damage. He had to go into a deep hibernation to properly heal due to the lack of technology at the time. He asked the armored squadron to take him into space. No doubt their ship is out of date, and their database even more. They land on a Frieza planet, and learn that the planet is nearly lost to the local forces. Frieza and King Cold have been killed, and Cooler was lost to time, so there was no one to properly lead their forces. Cooler sees what happens with their limited data. Some random women killing his brother and father. Oh, and apparently there were some stupid monkeys too. Cooler thinks to himself, 1 year. All he needs is to train for 1 year to upgrade his ship, fully recover, and train to be strong enough to beat some stupid women and their stupid monkeys too. After all, what's the worst that would happen? They unlock another new transformation right after the previous arc? Surely not. Hey there, Michael, aka SMDBZX here. And in case you wanted to support me in my, just support me in general, support the channel. I've written a book here. And while it's not related to anything I do on my channel, it's $5. I'm going to be making about 4. And, I just really appreciate it if you like reading and you want to support me. Went out of your way and bought the book, right? If you like reading, no pressure, of course. And then I forgot to make a little section of my OBS to show you. But I also have a Discord channel. Come by, hang out with the boys. Everyone there who talks is pretty nice. I'd appreciate that too. I'm there every day. And yeah, I'll see you later. Goodbye. After the events of Beerus, everyone continues training, given that they didn't stand a chance against Beerus. Gohan in particular has been questioning his potential. Pishi was just so much further than he was, so he wanted her power, being his older sister. After all, he looked up to her. However, when Gohan asked about Super Saiyan God, Pishi explained that her form wasn't Super Saiyan. She could tell because she felt her power increase further past HDD, and a normal Saiyan wouldn't have been able to do that. Which makes Gohan further ponder. He could just do the ritual too, but he doesn't want to. He's not quite Vegeta or his dad, but he still has his pride as a Saiyan. So Gohan actually goes to Raditz and asks to learn more about Saiyan. And while Gohan doesn't feel proud for their people's nature, does find it interesting. His tail. It allows them to turn to great apes, which is something Gohan actually had no idea about. Gohan vaguely recalls the information being told to him before, but him and Goku really weren't exposed to the transformation. Pishi and Gohan have never transformed to a great ape, period. Although Pishi has no tail, so I mean, it's not like she'd have the chance to do it regardless. Gohan would unlock Super Saiyan 3 like the full-blood Saiyans, but Gohan would ponder on these thoughts, his tail, and Pichi's newfound strength. Perhaps with his knowledge, he could grow stronger, and while experimenting, he'd come to an interesting conclusion. He asked about Saiyan tails to the Supreme Kai and Elder Kai while training, and asked if Kibito's healing ability could regrow it. And then, he tells them to chop off his tail. Everyone's kinda confused why he'd do that. Nappa and Raditz are outraged. Gohan doesn't care. He's told them to do it. After having his tail removed, Gohan had trouble controlling his power for a bit, which Goku recalls having the same trouble when he was a kid. Within a few days, Gohan was able to go Super Saiyan 2 again. However, as he tries to go Super Saiyan 3, he realizes it's a lot harder to do than before. And when he does transform, the form is so much more strenuous that he can only hold it for 30 seconds in a sparring match with Raditz. By the end of the week, he goes through a very painful process of regrowing his tail, where he would almost immediately feel the difference and start coming to his own conclusions. But wait, training with Raditz and Nappa, where's Goku and Vegeta? Well, those two were on Beerus' planet. Those two realized that base to base, Goku and Vegeta were even, and just barely behind Pishi in terms of base form at least. While Nappa isn't a significant amount behind those two, it's noticeable, and the same can be said with Raditz to Nappa. And 2 Saiyans were enough as it is, they weren't going to have 5. Pishi wasn't really interested in the training, she'd just wait for her dad to get back and teach her then. She's kinda lazy after all, like her mother. This means that only the CPU, Piccolo, and the humans were left on Earth, however, as the other Saiyans were on the Supreme Kai's planet. We cut to Bulma and Blanc. Blanc, as per usual in these expeditions, felt like shit, but she put it off. She just feels weak when around this ore, and she's always just fine when she gets home the next day after a nice sleep. Didn't quite understand it. As Capital Corp's employees were mining the ore, though, a big dinosaur appeared, likely that T-Rex thing you often see in Z. That's when Blanc did finally get off her ass. Unfortunately for the dinosaur, Blanc breaks some of its teeth out with a single kick, and it whimpers back in the forest. All the day's work, she supposed. As they were collecting crystals, Blanc takes a seat once again. She had a headache, and she's starting to feel tired. But before she could take a nap or rest, one of the scientists says the crystals are acting weird now that they started piling them up. This confuses Bulma and Blanc, and they go check it out. As they do, the crystals react violently and explode. Bulma looks down, shocked and shaken. Blanc had quickly grabbed Bulma and flown out of the way of the explosion, but before she could make it back to the ground to drop her off, everyone had already been killed. There's large smoke, and her senses were overwhelmed by something inside of it. Aside of the smoke were a pair of Dragon Balls and a person. Blanc's eyes widen upon seeing that the person looked like her own HGD form, only distorted. For visual purposes, we're using an inverted white heart, but if I had the choice, I'd make more specific changes, similar to Uzume and Kurame in V2. Blanc puts Bulma down and tells her to go home, because Blanc was now pissed off, and she starts approaching the Faker, while Bulma leaves on a jet. She tries to ask what the hell the Faker is, but there's no words exchanged. The Faker rushes Blanc and quickly sends her flying. Two get into a clash, throwing punches and kicks, but Blanc is overwhelmed swiftly. She jumps out of the way of an energy blast and throws down one of her own, but after the large explosion, there was no damage. Blanc gets annoyed and uses... As Blanc used the legendary technique, she learned that it did no damage. She really didn't get that 1 out of 100% chance to do damage. Big sad. Blanc was huffing and puffing. She was just so goddamn tired, and she didn't understand why. She'd barely been fighting, but she felt like she's been fighting for hours. She then realizes that if she wants to beat this opponent, she's going to have to transform. So she lets out a yell and begins glowing brightly before... Nothing happens. She looks at her hands in shock, but then gets launched into the ground by a strong right hook from the Faker. Blanc slowly gets up, and before she can launch another attack, Noir kicks the imposter away. Noir makes fun at Blanc for getting her ass kicked by a negative recolor of herself. But Blanc then tells Noir to shut the fuck up. Blanc then gets a distance away to let Noir fight, where she quickly transforms into Blackheart to just get it over with. She had business to attend to after all. Blackheart actually starts beating the shit out of fake Whiteheart. Blackheart then charges a Kamehameha after sending the Faker flying and launches it off. a technique she picked up from Goku, obviously, and hits the enemy dead on. However, as the smoke dissipates, the Faker is still there and perfectly fine. The Faker would spit out some blood and then rush Blackheart after the two caught their breath. This time, the Faker was actually able to defend herself, albeit barely. The two then disappear, and some clashes appear in the air, before Blackheart gets hit with a strong right hook. That was a lucky shot. The two begin to clash again, for about 5 minutes in total, and Blackheart realizes something is wrong. She's winded, and when she got here, she was smacking the imposter around. Not to mention, before, she seemed to suddenly be able to keep up with Blackheart, and then the tanker completely tanked her Kamehameha. The Faker then hit Blackheart in the face and is sent flying through some boulders. Blackheart sat up and also spat out some blood. It was her time this time. Even though she just blasted that Faker to his somehow knocking Blackheart around. She didn't understand what the hell was going on. Bird appears and asks what's going on. Blackheart told her to can't and that she could handle it. However, after a very quick scuffle with the Faker, Blackheart couldn't handle it. Bert turns into Greenheart and the two jump the Faker. But even working together, they struggle. As Blackheart huffs, Blanc stares up at them. Curious, Blanc would fly up to the two and tell them that somehow they're having their energy drained. It would explain why the Faker nagged the Kamehameha, and as they're having this conversation, Neptune shows up as Purple Heart, and the group, would start jumping negative Whiteheart. However, just like with Blanc and Blackheart, every clash, the enemy actually grows stronger. Eventually, though, as negative Whiteheart goes for a killing blow against Greenheart, she gets drop-kicked by Pishi. Way to go to the basically main character of the series. This was Pishi's first day off in over a month. No job, no homework, no training. She's gonna have a nice day out with her boyfriend. Purple Heart wasn't having that. But regardless, Pishi activated her ultimate form and started going to town. And it was brutal. The Faker wasn't even getting a single hit off. It was really bad. The CPU mentioned that that thing can absorb energy. However, Pishi doesn't seem to notice, as, again, she's knocking this thing around. You have to remember the power gap between Pishi and the other CPU. Her base form is stronger, meaning her HDD would be stronger, but her ultimate form is higher than that of a Super Saiyan 3's, while HDD is only as strong as a Super Saiyan. The power gap is quite tremendous. After a little while, though, Pishi can feel what they're talking about, but she doesn't understand how they lost if they were only getting so much energy drained. Neptune tries to think of why Pishi would be so unaffected, but Noir comes to the realization herself. The thing absorbs CPU's energy, but when they go HDD, I guess you could say CPU energy skyrockets. Pishi is only a halfling, and she's not using a CPU form, so Pishi isn't having her energy drained nearly as fast as everyone else. And Blanc was near the crystals all day, so it's no wonder she would have been tired right away. Regardless though, Pishi's having trouble, or starts having trouble. The enemy has already absorbed a lot from the other CPU, and Pishi tries finishing her off with a large Kamehameha. Before everyone could tell her why this is a terrible idea, fake Whiteheart opens up her aunt's Super 17 style and just takes the attack head on. Pishi didn't know it could absorb Energy Blast after all. They kind of left that detail out. Pishi starts getting annoyed and huffs as she tries to power up further. She was just gonna bust out her new god form. However, as she starts to power up, her energy just stops. She seems confused and tries powering back up, but then it fizzles out again. Wham! She's sent flying to the ground. As Pishi gets up, she realizes she's been sent right next to the crystals, which had exploded, but now there are tiny bits of them all over the ground. She feels her body start turning to mush as her energy is drained much more rapidly, and she slowly starts crawling away, wiping the blood off her face. She didn't quite understand what was going on. She was perfectly fine one moment, and then the next, her energy just disappeared. As Whiteheart goes to throw an energy blast, Neptune remembers something. Neptune remembers that this isn't named Dragon Ball Super X Hyperdimension Pishi. This is named Dragon Ball Z X Hyperdimension Neptunia. Her name's in the what if. She can't let Pishi take her role as the main character. It's preposterous. She turns into HCD and kicks the Faker away. She then demands that everyone else gives them their energy. Pishi immediately does as she's told, and begrudgingly everyone else does as well. As Purple Heart receives their energy, she transforms again, powering up by a very large amount. Pishi then immediately picks up on the trace of God as Purple Heart turns into her next transformation. Inside this new form, negative Whiteheart can't seem to absorb next Purple's power, and with a single slash of her katana, the Faker is sliced in half and blown up dramatically. She then blasts the ground where the crystals were, causing a large explosion. However, it would appear that the Dragon Balls were unharmed. She then passes out immediately. Our story picks up from last time. after Neptune accessed the next form. They decided to look further into these red crystals. Apparently, they were all over the planet, but now Bulma and the CPU realized that the crystals have some kind of connection, and that Capscorp will be destroying them. But ignoring that, the CPU has something more concerning in mind. Neptune got this new super special awesome transformation, and now everyone wants it, and thus everyone does the ritual again towards the other CPU. After the CPU power up and they try out their powers. However, they come to realize that Neptune cannot access the power she used before, just like Pishi can't access the power of her stay and drive divinity, or whatever we're calling it. And despite her stronger base form, Pishi's ultimate form still can't beat the CPU's next form. And just a quick side note, in the Discord server, it was brought to my attention that some people seem to have missed what I had previously stated. If it wasn't clear before, these forms are the CPU's stand-ins for Super Saiyan God and Blue and etc. So Saiyan God Divinity is twice as strong as Blue, and next is equal to Super Saiyan Blue, the complete version. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the complete version. And neither of these forms can be accessed by the group willingly. In fact, I'm pretty sure I mentioned that before. The server seems to think that they could, and I don't know why they thought this, because there's literally no evidence of this whatsoever. I literally said Pishi could not access her new transformation in Part 2. Not to mention, none of the CPUs actively train, so I honestly have no idea why anyone thought Neptune could access her next form, or Pishi access Stay and Drive Divinity, SDD. But no, they are unable to actively access the form. Join the Discord server. Okay, thanks. Back to the story. So after the other CPU learned that they were unable to access their new form either, they all began to train again with each other to unlock that form. Pishi, unfortunately, doesn't have enough time to train as much as they do. A job and college takes up enough time as it is. Oh, and in case you're wondering what Pishi's doing in college, I don't know. Let's say she's becoming a professional artist for funsies. One day, as everyone is training though, everyone senses a power level approaching the planet. A few of them, but one of them is massively larger than the other, and kind of feels familiar to some of the group. As the CPU, including Pishi and Gohan, and Piccolo, show up to the location of the enemy. Out of the ship comes Cooler's armored squadron, and then Cooler himself. Everyone would ask who he is, and he'd tell them his name is Cooler, Frieza's big brother. Remember, no one would recognize him because they never saw Frieza's final form, so he doesn't look like the rest of his family. That means we're avoiding the racism charges in this one, unlike the movie. Cooler explains that he doesn't care about his little brother or father, but a disgrace against his bloodline is still a disgrace. They must be taken care of. Pishi brags, smirking as she does something foolish. Pishi puts a thumb to herself and says, "Ha, handle us, please. I killed your father as a child. I'll pummel your lizard ass in the ground and blow you into the wind." Cooler would then stare, before firing a death beam through her shoulder. It was actually aimed at her heart, but she barely had time to dodge the attack, and yelled out in pain. Pishi would growl and power up into her ultimate form, before flying past the armored squadron and sending Cooler flying through his own ship with a right hook, and then flying after him. Gohan chases after the two, while the CPU and Piccolo deal with the armored squadron. Piccolo says he wants to go first. The others are a bit concerned, but Piccolo's last fight against 1718 was 12 years ago. Piccolo scoffs and tells them that he has not been slacking off, although it's clear he's fallen behind. He says he can take them though. Cooler's armored squadron are appalled, but decide to accept it. Piccolo grunts as he goes to fight the Cooler's armored squadron, and well, and they're taken care of basically the same way as they are in the dub, the movie. I mean, only Salzer is actually killed in this. So there you go, Piccolo fans. I gave your boy a dub. Now remember, Piccolo has not fused, with Kami or Nail in this. So right now, if we are giving maximum wankage here, okay? Piccolo's second cell, this second form cell level. That's the most I can give him. I can't see him being any stronger whatsoever. Meanwhile, with Peachy, she's having a bit of trouble. She really can't use her arm anymore, and Cooler has a tail. But she's far stronger than Cooler currently, so she sends her flying into a mountain with a kick. Cooler would get himself out and compliment Peachy. He was impressed. However, this charade of weakness has gone on long enough. Peachy looks confused, and then Cooler begins to power up. Peachy's caught off guard by the sudden rush of power. You see, in this timeline, Cell never woke up, and Frieza never transformed. So, Cooler is actually the first opponent they're fighting who transforms. So, yeah, she's kind of appalled, you know, she's like, transforming? That's our thing. But, unfortunately for Peachy, it's a Dragon Ball thing. Apologies. Peachy quickly takes a knee to the gut, and then gets her face slammed into the ground, collapsing the whole cliff thereon. Peachy lifts her hand to fire a blast into his face, but does no damage as she's slammed into the water, onto the ground inside the water. Peachy's eyes widen, before Cooler lets go of her face and begins to punch further down onto him. She lets out a gargled, bloodied yell, as he continues to hit her in the face under the water, slowly losing consciousness and drowning. As Cooler raises his fist to finish her off, he feels a rumble in the water, before getting kicked in the face by a golden glow. Gohan, Super Saiyan 3, quickly grabs Peachy and flies out of the water. He tries CPR, where she eventually coughs up bloodied water and then passes back out. Gohan's golden Super Saiyan 3 aura sparks as he gets angry. He then vanishes and hits Cooler in the face again, and the two begin to clash. But Cooler quickly gains the upper hand, kicking the boy away. Gohan rolls and uses his aura to stop himself midair, before firing an uncharged Kamehameha from range. Cooler powers up and then flies through the blast just like the movie. Gohan is shocked, and then he is punched into the side of a mountain. A lot of mountains were hurt in the making of this What If. Gohan admits that he underestimated Cooler, and that he figured he'd be easy to handle, just like how his older sister killed the rest of his family so easily. Cooler then drops the bombshell that he's only been using a third of his power, and that he knows Gohan's been holding back too. When Cooler insists on doing so, Gohan smirks and turns back to his base form, saying that if he wants it, he's got it. Gohan gets a serious expression, and his eyes flash gold before he starts yelling, releasing a bright golden explosion of energy as he powers up, pushing, the clouds and the water and the earth around him, flying everywhere. And when the light dissipates, Gohan has become a Super Saiyan 4. Cooler would make a comment saying how Gohan's become even more of a monkey, but then immediately regrets it as Gohan hits Cooler in the gut, followed up by a few more stronger punches. He would then send him into the ground with a short-range ki blast. As Gohan would land on the ground, he'd tell Cooler to leave. Cooler would be both shocked and offended, taking mercy from Gohan. The rest of the team would show up and tell Gohan to finish him off. Gohan doesn't get why though. Cooler didn't kill anybody. Piccolo explains to him that if he lets Cooler go, just come back stronger later. Even stronger than before. Remember, this is Gohan's first villain. He wasn't involved with Majin Buu, not directly at least. And then he also wasn't involved with Beerus. Majin Buu wasn't there to piss off Beerus. It was all good. So, this is Gohan's first real battle. He doesn't understand the importance of killing your opponent before they get the upper hand or come back stronger. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depends how you look at it, he learns the lesson very quickly, as Cooler hits Gohan in the back with a large ki blast and flies into the air while they're blinded. Cooler then starts charging a supernova, stating that he's the one who gets to decide who lives and dies. He was the strongest in the universe. Gohan would stare up calmly and charge up a Kamehameha. The blast easily goes through Cooler's own attack and sends him into the atmosphere, then space. The Kamehameha, assumingly, easily killing the much weaker Cooler. Gohan reverts to normal, and people have questions. What was that form, and what was that second form? How did he get so strong? Where did those clothes come from? And those answers? Super Saiyan 3, Super Saiyan 4, training, and he doesn't know. Super Saiyan 4 has magic clothes powers. Gohan and Neptune take these sheeted horns for a sensu beam, because, remember, Dende does not exist here on Earth. Meanwhile, on Supreme Kai's planet, Raditz and Nappa see what has happened through the magical orb and get triggered. How did he get this strong? How dare he unlock a new form without them? This is not fair! Goku and Vegeta also saw on Beerus' planet. They're fascinated by Super Saiyan 4, but it's not as strong as Super Saiyan Blue. As a new threat is about to affect the planet Earth, we'll see how this works in the next part of the Destroyer tournament.